You're listening to Mark Langley's Horsemanship podcast, a podcast that answers our online members' questions. I'm Jenny Langley, and with me is Mark Langley, a specialised horseman who trains through engaging a horse's mind with great benefits. This week we're answering questions about training tips for horses that are reactive and horses that are shut down or frozen. We've got a horse that's reactive to its blanket, and Mark's going to give us some tips on how we can help that particular horse. And then we've got two horses that are shut down and frozen, different situations, both under saddle, and Mark's going to enlighten us about how we can help that situation. So let's start, Mark, with a question that comes from Nicole. And Nicole has a little Shetland pony. She's quite new to the Mark Langley online membership, but she's wanting to educate this new pony that's just been started. So it hasn't had a huge amount of education. 6 weeks training program. She's been ridden as a lead line pony previously, but now she's going under saddle. She can see that she's fairly frozen in the leading, and she was following a person, not the lead rope. Now, I know that's one of the things that you address in your online training. So she's been getting this little Shetland pony to walk past her and in any position around her, and she's been following the lead rope as opposed to her. But she has found that the little pony will freeze if she increases her energy. Now, she's great with children on her back, but as soon as she sits on her herself, then the little pony tends to go into a freeze and doesn't want to go forwards, or she wants to go back to the gate or the ponies in the next paddock. She's noticed that she also is very good and much happier if she can follow someone else. So if someone else walks near us, she'll walk and trot where that person goes and doesn't mind leaving the other horses. So it's almost like she feels safer with a leader that she can see, and she hasn't transitioned to following a rider. Now, she'd like to know your thoughts on this. Nikki is wondering what she can do from here and what would be your take on the whole situation of what's happening. And Mark, I'd particularly like your take on the relevance of the fact that there is an 11 hands high pony, and how that can possibly be influencing what's happening.
Just on the relevance of an 11 hand high pony, the thing I've found with ponies over the years is because they're so small, people can sort of sometimes manhandle them more, and also they can flood them easier because they're so small amongst us and we're quite tall. And I think sometimes if you've got a massive big horse, you put a real effort in to make sure it's educated because you don't want to die because they're so big and strong. And whereas a little pony, I think some people can get away with a few little things, getting on them earlier, shoving them around a bit, pushing them past their processing speed. So they're not. I had to think through things as sometimes a bigger horse. I mean, this is a generalisation, but you can imagine yourself getting on a big, nervous 16-hand horse that's big and strong, and you're sitting up there going really sort of at the horse's mercy here. Then you get on this little pony where your feet can nearly touch the ground. You're like, oh well, if something goes wrong, I'm only going to get tipped there. So yeah, and I think it gives people a bit of more of a confidence with them. So you can get a lot of ponies that have missed a lot of important sort of pieces of education because of the complacency and the relaxed approach people take because they're not as their life's not as they don't feel their life's threatened as much. So when they're starting them, so yeah, and if the ponies had a bit of a sort of a start, but been a bit flooded and not really thought through things properly and searched properly, then it's very easy for it to go into a state of freeze. It's very easy for it just to target the friends and stuff like that. And if you look at a lot of horses, like I deal with this all the time, and it's a saying I have is, we're trying to get our horses to search into nothing and find something, not always go to something. So in the sense of the pony following somebody, well, it's easy. I can hand over that responsibility and just target you and follow you. It's like, imagine that if you just got into some new city where you can't even read the signs because it's a different language. And you're like, oh no, this is terrifying. I've got to drive through the city in this traffic that I've never seen before, and process all of this, and I've got to end up at this destination without crashing. Holy cow! And then someone says, oh, I know the way there. Why don't you just follow my car? Oh, beauty! And you stick right behind them, going, excellent. I can just follow you, and I don't have to worry about anything. I'll just stay right there so I don't get anyone in front of me, and I'll be right. And then you feel suddenly a breath of relief, and you don't notice all the signs, you don't notice anything, you just watch that car and where it goes, and you target it until you're at the other side of the city. So if you can imagine that in your own mind, that's why horses find it much easier to target something, because sometimes it can give them that sense of tunnel vision and they don't have to process all the problems and think about things. So, and if she's been a bit flooded in her training, and then she'll go into that sort of phase very easily. It's just easier to do this instead. And if you watch a lot of people, how they ride young horses, they tend to push them along and push them along and push them along. And when they stop pushing, the horse just stops. And that can be what's happened to her as well. So, that's where I go back in the riding to in your groundwork. So before riding, in your groundwork, get her to look away and search and just go out and sniff and come back. Not just leading by lessons, but maybe just get up on the eye a little bit and say, pulse against the eye, not against it, but, at a distance, till she blinks and she searches away, and maybe just send her out at a distance and get her looking around and stuff. And then when you ride her, look for the thought changes. Don't use your legs to push her along. Use your reins to maybe just get her to start following the rein around, and then coming out and finding a walk until she's starting to search in different directions. As soon as you cut your legs off on some of these horses, these young horses, you take that ability to be able to push them along like a wheelbarrow. So by just using the reins, they'll have to eventually find a way into flow and movement where they're searching out. So that one range starts really good for the ponies, and by the time they do search and they're thinking out and going away from their friends or doing something different, they have had that many flowy turns that they're actually turning a lot better, leading a lot better through the reins. If you have to go back to do it inside, put a hole to do it if there's a lot of, instead of pulling on the mouth all the time. But once you free up that steering, then you free up the possibility of unlocking her when she gets a bit frozen at a gate or frozen at the friends, a bit shut down. And just work through that until she's got a nice state of flow, and she can go in every direction equally good. And I noticed you sent a little video through. I thought she was kind of a little bit hot and a little bit targety in her mind. She was kind of going out there quite fast and forward with the young rider on, but I think her thoughts were somewhere else and they were ahead of her, and that's why she was kind of a bit rushy.
Yep, so she's a little bit rushy, but then when you take the child off her and then you put an adult on her and she doesn't move so easily, then she goes into a frozen state. So which is worse? Which one needs to be worked on more?
Both. As I say, the one range start when the adult's on until she just sort of starts to come out of her shell a little bit and search, and that will also help her with the child on, because instead of letting her go ahead, you'll start to steer her in a space until she's following the rein nicely. And when she finds a soft walk in the steering with the child on, then she'll just steer out into a soft walk and you give her a loose rein. So it'll kind of the one range start will bring her back when the child's on. When the adult's on, it'll get her to search out and come out of her shell a bit. But just be careful how much you ride a pony. I don't know how big the adult is, but it's a small pony, so you just got to be careful that you're not overloading the pony too much.
Okay, and let's go on to another horse that shuts down. A horse that has an owner who feels quite confident with getting this particular horse to open when she's on the ground. So she's an off-the-track standardbred mare who would hyper-focus, shut down when she first got her approach, though, and she feels comfortable and confident determining when she's sat down on the ground, and she can open up and reconnect with her, which I think is fantastic. So she's been able to sort of redirect her when she's hyper-focused, which you were just talking about, and helping her to stay present. She hasn't yet, though, rode her under saddle because she's getting treated for ulcers. When she does do that, Laurie's wondering then where she goes from here. Have you got any tips when you're riding a horse that does have a tendency to shut down? How can you notice that when you're on their backs?
Yeah, so how can you... So how do you notice, like in a lot of standies, off the track standies, I see they get these set ears and they just kind of march along and they're not really thinking. It's just more they've been sort of operated like in this train line sort of fashion. So I always ride a horse on a loose rein, and I don't show them where they want to go, because where I want them to go. I don't know where I want to go. And by doing that, because some horses can be light, so you might get a standie that's quite light and just moves forward and steers. But if you just drop the reins, you would find they just gently go back to safety. So some horses are heavy when you go away from home. Some horses go away from home and they don't feel like they're heavy, but they still have this kind of bias, and you let them go and they go back home. Okay. So like what I was talking about, the pony, the one range start enables you to get the horse following a feel of a rein until the horse is letting go of hard thoughts. And it might take you a day or two or three or four, but they start to follow the rein around, and then they'll start to just come out and search, and you just sit and follow where they go. If they always fold back to their mates, you might take that rein and turn them again until they sort of are following the feel of the rein. And when they're following the feel of the rein, you just let them out in a different direction and see if they take that direction. If they don't, they'll fold back. And because they're searching out of that sort of place, and they're searching and they think they can go back towards their friends, they kind of actually start to think and search. And then when they go, well, that's not available, I'll try something else, they start to search and go somewhere else. And what happens, you'll start to see the ears start to flick. And so when you're riding, the biggest indicator that the horse is more open is you'll see the ears widen, because that's when the mind softens, the ears widen, they become more perceptive to things and they float more, like little satellites that are moving around. And you'll see them get looser, and you'll feel the rib cage open up, and the horse will start to breathe more into itself more as it sniffs, because it'll draw air to sniff and stuff like that. And that's how you feel when the horse is opening up. When you're turning, you'll start to see a more soft blinking and stuff happening. Sometimes you might see a bit of rapid eye movement first, and then you'll see a nice even blink, and you'll see the eyes start to roll more. And that's what you'll see start to happen. But if you don't want to ride in a particular pattern, and you're just happy to let the horse find its way out of those one rein starts, you'll just start closing the door on the target, and the horse will start to open other doors up, and soon you'll be able to let the horse out of a turn, and it'll go every direction equal. And that means the horse has chosen those directions, and it's completely let go of the safety magnet that it was hooked onto in its mind. And then once every direction's equal and they're following those reins softly, then I'd start work on acceleration and stuff like that, and get them to speed up and slow down and stuff. But then at least you're not using your legs to say, stop slowing down because you're stuck at your mates, or stop speeding up because you're stuck at your mates and you want to go towards your mates. You've fixed that in all your one rein starts. And they kind of have to be open to go and search and be soft in a loose rein.
You mentioned riding in a rope halter a few times there in both of the answers of those questions. I do have another question slightly, but it's relevant now, and it came from Patsy. She's wondering about riding in a halter. She'd like to know, is it really an effective training aid? Because she's found that a lot of halters just move around and slide and lift up near them, especially around the nose area. So, yeah, she'd just like to know about, in particular, your rope halters.
I mean, every horse head's different. I prefer riding in the side pull because I can adjust it to the horse and they're quite secure. They don't slip around a lot. I'll still ride a horse in a halter because I know some horses will slip in their eyes, and if I use a halter, I don't want the ones that slip in their eyes. I want it fairly comfortable, not too snug, but not too loose around their nose. And not coming down close to their eyes too much. And yeah, there is a bit of slop in a halter that you won't have in a side pull, but the horses are pretty good at figuring it out. I prefer to sort of step up to the side pull pretty quickly to get those nice lateral reins on the horses. But with buying a halter, like we've got the four sizes, I think, and there are some horses that don't quite fit those sizes. There might be the ones who they've got like a really small cob nose, but they're sort of got a long head. So the cob's too short and the full's too big on the nose. So you do have those variations that if you've got an adjustable halter, you can sort of adjust to perfect for the horse. So it's not always going to be for every horse, but in the most horses that you've got a size that will fit reasonably comfortable for your daily needs. Some people, when they do groundwork, they use cavesons and different things like that. You can use your side pulling groundwork if you want a bit more stability, and you're teaching certain accuracy to your horse. But I've got plenty of horses to lift and float off a halter and travel really nice, even different halters that other people have got on their horses. Because a horse will start to yield and soften to pressure, and the movement gets better, and then you start to refine it into what you might be riding in, which might be the side pull. But it's not like oh no, completely different aid, the horses panic. It's not too bad. It crosses over pretty easily.
In terms of a good fit, how important is that with a halter?
Yeah, there's some halters that are they stretch and they've got a terrible fit and they're all over the place and they're rubbing, they're moving around a lot. And yeah, I think you want a fairly good, comfortable, snug fit. It's quite important. I think, yeah.
Okay, next question from Carla from Germany. She'd like your input, Mark, on her 4-year-old gelding who has a strong dislike for wearing a winter blanket. Now, for different reasons, I suppose it's very cold in Germany for them. Carla would like him to get used to a blanket. So she has been trying to do that. She's been rubbing him with it. She's been practicing walking towards the blanket and then passing it down on his sides, doing a hind end yield when he feels the need to move away from it and flee. The blanket itself is quite heavy and it's not easy for her to throw onto him. So she's been sort of aiming a little bit at his wither and just practicing that without tossing it all the way over, so that hopefully he'll get more comfortable with it. But despite her training him for a few weeks now, he isn't improving. He is still reactive, and when he does wear the blanket, he chews and tears at it. She's wondering, should she keep proceeding down this line, or have you got any tips for her?
I'm guessing he needs a reset in his mind. It sounds like he's stuck in his sort of like a curious part of his mind, which is impulsive, like an impulsive part of his mind, which means, well, there's a blanket I don't like, although I don't like the feeling of that, or I'm nervous of that. Now, if he's frightened of it, that's kind of better because then he'll soften to it in a different way. But if he's just become distasteful of it and sensory processing, like, I don't like it, then that's you really have to work on. So it'd be interesting to sort of know how he leads and how he sort of really responds to other things. If he's light, if he's soft, if he's round-eyed, if he's kind of in that compliant sort of acceptable frame of mind. If he's not, and if he's got a bit of a square eye and he kind of sometimes gets a bit nibbly when you're working under the chin, or he's, a bit kind of like, poke, you poke me, I poke you sort of thought, and then I think he's going to, anything that gets to a more sensitive area is going to be like an argument. I don't know which road to go on, the pokey road or the he's frightened of it road. But what I might talk about is the pokey one where you poke him, he pokes you sort of thing. I think I'd go over his body and I would start to press sensitive areas, find a sensitive area where he's kind of putting his ear back and he's going, I don't like that, and I would be ready just in case. He might have to block his jaw, but I would press that area and press it until he searches, not just kind of focuses on it and gets hard. Imagine a belly rope lesson, okay? Just imagine this. You put a belly rope on a horse, you go to pull forward and the horse gets sour and cranky and they kind of go, I don't like that, I'm sensitive around the barrel. Well, you can keep like giving a little pulse press on it until they kind of soften a little, and then you kind of take that away a little bit, and then you ask again until they blink and search. So instead of focusing on the problem, they focus on searching or following, their thoughts somewhere, and then they'll soften, and then you'll give them a break, and you'll do it again until anywhere you touch that horse or lead with a belly rope, they'll kind of blink and search and soften and not hyper focus on that thing. And if it's that sort of thing, then you go over his body without the rug and just find areas where he hyper focuses on it and gets a bother, and tell him to think away from it and search and not hyper focus on it. And you keep doing that until, and I think there's a video we put online not so long ago about a little horse that gets grumpy, and I just stayed in that area until he thought away and did something different until you could rub him and he was soft. So if it's sensory processing and something like that he can get a bit irritated by the blanket, then I'll be working on that. If it's fear, I do a lot more with a big heavy something on a flag, and kind of maybe get him to follow it a bit and follow the lead rope while he's watching that, and then touch and go. And he comes past it, touch, and you take it away, touch, take it away until he doesn't have to have it on him for too long, and expose him like that until you can start to sort of put it over them a bit more and rub them all over. And I would just work him every day with a flag that's got a big sort of towel on it or something, a stick with a towel. You can kind of, in every lesson, leading lesson, you're exposing him to that. And if he gets a hard thought, goes back to the cranky thought or something like that, you might just interrupt it with the lead rope and say, try something different. But you can sort of, in your basic groundwork, have a tool that can simulate some of that sensory thing that he's going to have to get used to, like the rug, and just have it in your hand so you can do it a lot when you're doing other lessons and improve his leading. Get really good control through that lead rope, and half the time when you get really good control through the lead rope, the pokey horses soften anyway, and they're in a good frame of mind, and you can put a saddle on them and put a rug on them and they're fine. And I've seen plenty of horses that I've chucked a something on, and they've been looked like it was the worst thing in the world. And then I taught them to lead for 5 minutes or interrupted their thoughts in that way, brought that thing back, put it on them, and they weren't worried about it at all. And I've seen that so many times that sometimes we don't want to focus on the blanket because it could be the mindset, the wrong mindset. And once we get the mindset right, then the blanket's not a problem. So I hope that helps you, Carla. Yeah. Everyone's been in that.
People go down the desensitizing route, don't they? They do sort of try and do that one thing so the horse can get used to it. But whereas, you're saying you just get them in the right mindset, and then actually that's not an issue at all. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's like it's like when someone's busy and you go and talk to them and they don't want to talk to you. You're like, oh, they don't like me. It's like, no, they're just busy. But when they're not busy and you got their attention, they'll have a conversation with you. Horses are exactly the same. They're in the wrong mindset. They don't want to be blanket put. They don't want a blanket put on them. They don't want this put on them. They don't like it. They don't. My mind's elsewhere, and it becomes a fight. And some horses spend their life in that sort of. And I've seen people think, oh, my horse doesn't like a saddle blanket or a rug. I'm going to do graded exposure, approach and retreat. I'm going to spend days getting them to like it and sniff it, and because it's all about the rug. And it's like, well, no, it's not about the rug. Look at your horse's mindset. Like, you're approaching the horse with a rug in the wrong mindset, well, it's going to take you forever. That's the key to everything. Exactly same as people in education. Your teacher approaches a kid looking out the window in the wrong mindset, they won't get anywhere with them, and they'll end up in a fight. But if that ADHD kid maybe was out in the morning playing sport and then had a certain amount of rest, a certain amount of stimulant, and then sat in that classroom and for half an hour there's a window of opportunity. Well, that window of opportunity, that teacher's going to get a lot done with that kid.
Oh, okay. Fantastic. Thanks for your answers, Mark. It's great to have them. We'll be back next week. We're answering some more questions. Talk to you then.
Thanks. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, everybody.
The accurate insights and solutions that Mark Langley gives are at the forefront of emotive horsemanship globally. You can learn them for yourself through his supportive online membership. Check it out with a 7-day free trial. marklangley.com.au